It's some 2K World Cup action coming to you live on the iRacing Esports Network, brought to you by RaceSpot TV. We're in the Netherlands, Circuit Park Zandvoort, for today's 18-lap affair. It's going to be a fun one, a draft fest if it ever is. We were at Spa 2 weeks ago, and down the Kemmel Straight, you couldn't get anywhere if you did not have a draft. It's going to be the same here today at Zandvoort. You see the championship standings. Anthony Cat, after his win at Spa, takes the lead, 52 points. And just a reminder for everybody, the point system here, you get 50 for the win and 47 for second. You get bonus points for qualifying positions. You get 6 if you qualify first, 4 in second, 3, 2, 1, so on. You also get a bonus point for every 3 laps led. So that's going to come into some really big hands as the season goes on. Gonzalo Calvo, with that P2 finish, will be in second, and Mehdi El Fathi gets third place. I'm Dylan Coyle, joined alongside Gary Weaver. Our Junior Kankipati is in the studio helping produce this broadcast today. And Gary, it is going to be a unique one. Last week, I was broadcasting along with Arjuna the Pro Mazda race. There was the chicane that was set up in the second sector, the second half of the first sector in that map, and it kind of led to the draft not being as big of a deal. However, no chicane for this race. We're going to see a lot of drafting.
Yeah, here at Zandvoort, I'm really looking forward to seeing how those final corners can be strung together with the draft. There's really just this entire track really is just a big draft fest. I mean, there are a few corners to kind of break that toe just ever so slightly, but for the most part, that main straightaway, well, that last corner really leading into the main straightaway is going to be something to really keep an eye on for drafting.
Yeah, it will be something to look out for as we're riding alongside Anthony Cat, currently at the beginning of his time lap, 2.5 minutes before the grid gets set up. And, as broadcasters, we like to have the YouTube chat on as well. So if you have anything you'd like to say to everyone watching, we'll try to have some community speak and answer any questions you may have. And something I do see in the YouTube comments right now is Mehdi El Fathi is not going to be in this race today. We'll be back for Phoenix, the 2008 version of the track, and he's excited for that oval round. So El Fathi, third in the championship, will not be third at the end of today. However, you do have 2 drop races from the 12-race schedule, Gary.
Yeah, those drop races can really help out in some cases. So it's a good thing that it's a little bit lenient, just in case some drivers can have, some drivers need an off race or maybe just a break in general. So it's really nice. But riding on board with Anthony Cat as he goes through his hot lap for the time being, and you can see over there on that track map is that, or that you could see over there on the track map rather, is that, well, just overall, really sort of sweeping corners essentially for the most part. Maybe a couple dips here and there. Elevation change is absolutely incredible here, and well, coming into the final few corners, it is something to really wonder, well, how many times are some drivers going to be side by side battling it out, and will we be seeing a drag race to the line many times throughout this race, or even into the pit road?
Yeah, I think we definitely will, as Cat finishes his time lap with a 1:54.179. Every other driver is going to finish it right around in 10-20 seconds. That's the odd thing about the one-time lap. You see all the numbers, all the positions just pop up right away. You see Cat's number to the left-hand side of his name box dropping. That means other drivers are getting better spots on the grid. Not everyone is finished yet. 26 seconds before the checkered flag does wave. The course is very elevation heavy. There's a lot of changes, and the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine, well, it's so light it will drift around the turns. You're going to see no breakaways from any one driver. The grid is about to get set up here as the checkered flag waves on qualifying. We'll go through the top 20. Diego Francisco starts on the pole with a 1:53.884. Thomas Simon, who had a rough go last week, qualified on the pole, will start second. Martin Cruz, P3, and Kane Halliburton in P4.
P5 is going to be Edwin Valerino. P6 is going to be Christian Paris. Anthony Cat fell back to 7th place in qualifying. Simon Edwards rounds out your top 8.
In 9th, it's Paul Malakis, Enzo Canta in 10th. And starting just outside the top 10 is Benny Simonson and Alexis Tapiavico.
13th place holds Sebastian Schultz. Aaron DeFreitas starts off in the 14th place position. Rounding out the top 16 is going to be Joe Osborne.
And we'll get just 4 more names before we decide to just run through them. Alejandro Liro, 17th. Philip Lebert, who is the organizer of the 2K World Cup, in 18th. George Matushinsky, God, I'm sorry, in 19th. And didn't catch that name in 20th. It's actually going to be Borja Zazo. So everyone's lining up on the grid now. We'll be able to see, if you've ever seen what a bunch of hot air balloons look like, Gary, when they're lifting off, that's what you're going to see with the view here, because it looks like so many cars, so many different paint schemes. It's so fun to watch, especially in league racing, where everyone has their own unique number, their scheme, all goes week to week. That's the really good thing about this. So while everyone starts to get ready to go racing here at Zandvoort, we are going to hear the revs start to go up in the air, and we're green and away we go here at Circuit Park Zandvoort. A good start by Francisco, but an even better one by Simon, who's going to pull to the outside of him, going down into Tarzan. Look at all the cars spread out along the front stretch. To the outside of Francisco is Simon. He loses some ground, however, and Martin Cruz wants a chance to go down the inside of him. Going into turn 2, turn 3, the twisty section of the track, the first sector. It's so hard to get any passing going on, and there's some trouble. Some big trouble in the back of the pack. Can't quite see who it is, just a lot of trouble as we catch in this replay going down into Tarzan. You see, it's an accordion effect of sorts. You slow down, some wing damage, a bunch of cars into the sand. That's 4, so we'll see who has their race ended from that. But Gary, not a good way to start it off here.
Yeah, Enzo Canta unfortunately having a lot of bad luck from the start of this race so far. Not the best way to start as well, unfortunately. So he's definitely having a rough start to this next season in 2020. But in the meantime, though, someone who's not having too rough of a start is Diogo Francisco, who finally bested Tomas Simon on the main start and defended that lead. Martin Cruz now and pretty much everyone else in company, all single file, and at this point, it's follow the leader.
It is absolutely follow the leader here as we go into the Hans Ernst right-hander before taking a long sweeping left down into Kumno curve, named after the tire manufacturer, and Ari Lewandijk curve is turn 13, the last one on this circuit, and the 2020 version of Zandvoort. This right here is where the big banking has been added in anticipation of Formula One's return to the Dutch Grand Prix. At the end of lap 1, Diogo Francisco is going to be the man in first, but Thomas Simon, he wants to have a run down the outside again. He has some front wing in front of Francisco, but Thomas, I don't think Simon's going to be able to pull it off. He's still side by side, though, going into the curvy section of Sector 1.
It's going to be a attempt at least trying to get the lead. It's going to be preferred left-hand side in the corner, but doing a great job defending on the outer side is Diogo Francisco. Martin Cruz really just sitting back watching this happen, not doing much, and they are still going to be side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel, right next to each other, essentially drag racing throughout this entire section. Great shot from onboard Martin Cruz as we just look at these two battle. Francisco finally gets the nose ahead, finally gets by Tomas Simon again, but great job by both those drivers to stay side by side consistently throughout this section.
Yeah, great job. The great thing about this this group of drivers, it's very respectful. That's what you really love to see with everyone here. Going around Masters Curve into another long straight before Hans Ernst. It's going to still, I think for the rest of this race, we're going to see just swapping of positions, but maybe not as much as in Spa, because it is such a thin track with really room for one racing line. You can go two abreast, but it's not going to last for that long of a time. The nice thing, these cars are going to be together for the rest of the race. Now, if anyone wants to know about pit stop strategy, well, it's an 18-lap race. The pits, you're going to see it around laps 8 to 10. So, Gary, we have one pit stop, except you might have to go into two, especially if you're in front. And Francisco is wasting the most gas right now, as we do see Simon go down the inside into Tarzan and takes the lead away. Well, now Simon's going to be the one wasting the most gas. You see some more action in the other front of runners of the pack. They're not going to get separated at all. The top six are within a second of each other, but it's going to be, I'm not sure exactly what we're going to expect. I think we're going to just see one pit stop from everybody, but it's going to be a little bit of fuel management. It's going to come down to a fuel run, because you know not everyone is going to end up going into the pits twice. So it's almost a risk you've got to take.
Yeah, and that risk is, I mean, we talked about it just before we went live as well, is that if you're going to be running up at the front of this pack, or the front of this group, and not in the draft, if you're Diego Francisco or Tomas Simon in this case, both running side by side without draft or trading the lead, I mean, you're going to be using the most fuel possible, and sometimes you want to be like we were riding on board with Anthony Cat, just sitting back, letting this happen, letting things play out, riding in the draft, and trying to stretch that fuel run to at least about lap 10, so you know you can push the car to those final 8 laps. But I don't know, it's going to be something to really keep an eye on as drivers get to the end of this race. Fuel's going to be a factor. I'm wondering if anyone's really going to stretch it so hard to the point that they run out, and well, I wouldn't be surprised if that does happen.
Yeah, I honestly think that that's going to be a big indicator. That first stint, what are these guys going to do? If they do get to lap 10 before ducking down into pit lane coming out of the Arie Lewandijk curb, which they're on right now, then it's good. You're in good shape to go the rest of the race just on a one pit stop strategy. That's what I think a lot of drivers are hoping to do, as Francisco goes down the outside, brakes later than Simon in Tarzan, but has to drift his car back behind the gearbox of Simon. As we see, I'm looking down the rest of the order to
Right now, for the time being, as I believe Dylan might be having technical issues, but regardless, still, again, just everyone running single file for the most part. And looking back, there's still a few split gaps through the middle of the field, but, well, yeah, there's pretty much everyone running single file throughout the entire field. No one really is going side by side, aside from maybe a couple passes here and there.
Yeah, can you hear me now,
Yeah.
Gary? Cool. Sometimes I hold down, my keyboard is in front of my body, so it does not like the Bluetooth going through my body. You know, there's quite a bit of fat between myself and the computer. But nonetheless, I was looking down the road to see what happened, what was the outcome of that accident earlier. And there's a lot of guys who started at the front of the field: Paul Malakis, Enzo Conta, Joe Osborne, and Christian Cabingach. I can't even say that name. Cabingach, we'll say it that way, who started in 9th, 10th, 16th, and 15th. Well, now they're already back 39th and back to the end of the field, because there's 43 drivers in this lineup right now. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. Some of the guys are still in the lineup, but Cabingach, I don't think, is still in the race. Yeah, he is out of it. Osborne, I'm actually not. I don't think that he's in it either, which is unfortunate. But you know, it's just how these races go. Francisco going down the outside of Simon into Tarzan. As Simon, oh, he drifts a little bit, almost gets into the curbing and to the right side tires of Francisco. So hard to wheel these cars around because they are so light and so nimble. You know, you kind of go through this valley, this dip in terms of performance and sliding, where a car like a Formula 3 car is a little easier to handle because it's got some very good horsepower relative to its weight, its size. Well, Skip Barber cars, because they're so light and they're small cars, but they have enough horsepower where they can get drifty, if that's even a word. I'm going to make it a word. Uh, you know, it's kind of like a Formula One car in a way where you almost have to just stop on the gas sometimes and just handle the wheel enough where you're not getting too much traction loss on acceleration.
I'm wondering, now speaking of F1, I'm really excited to see how they'll take to the new Zandvoort layout, essentially, especially with that last corner being banked. I see that corner, and every time I'm thinking, that's going to be an absolutely insane final few laps if drivers do go side by side there. But I'm wondering, there we go, if we could get an onboard here. Well, yeah, they're turning the wheel as much as they would here in the Skip Barbers, as they pretty much would in F1 for the most part, 90 degrees in each direction at the very least. So it's very cool to see that these cars can definitely transfer over in a sense in terms of steering. So you were right, Dylan, is that you could stomp on the gas and really just let the wheel do all the work.
Yeah, it's a very nimble car, and on acceleration, you know, it's almost like a puzzle every single time that you have to find a solution to as you're riding right on board with Francisco going down, or Simon that is, going down the outside of Francisco, or I'm sorry, that is Simon going down the outside of Francisco, out of Tarzan. They're side by side, and that spot's going to be Simon. So he's back into P1. You know, the guy who's probably benefiting most out of this entire battle, Martin Cruz, sitting in P3. He's been there the entire race, and he's closest to that top spot without having to burn any fuel going for, you know, longer distances around the outside of these corners to pass anybody, as Francisco and Simon have been doing.
And right now, just sitting back is going to be the key thing here, as Martin Cruz is just riding here, just really letting these two battle out in front. I'd say that's a smart move, but unfortunately, he would have to use a little bit more throttle just to kind of keep up with these two, or at least one of these two, whenever they are going side by side. Granted, they can slow down Francisco and Simon at least when they're battling side by side. So, in a sense, that could let Martin Cruz maybe let off the throttle just a little bit for the most part, and just let those two come straight back to him. But he does have a whole host of cars directly behind him. But so far, aside from Francisco and Simon battling side by sides, everyone again just still riding it out, waiting around. So this is essentially, I'd say, the calm before the storm. And while that storm is coming about laps 8 to 10, so at the start finish line momentarily, it's going to be at least one lap before our pit road window is open, and that pit road entry is going to be very, very, not exactly deadly, but more of a challenge really, because that starting line for your pit road speed is going to be a lot closer than you think. So drivers will have to pull off to the right hand side and then immediately slow down as well. Already coming in, no, just breaking the toe is Tomas Simon, or at least trying to. Diego Francisco following suit.
Where I'm trying to get a look, although I don't think I will be able to get one from the onboard shot of Martin Cruz we've got right now. If you see that gauge, I think at the bottom right is the fuel indicator, and it's pretty low if it is the fuel indicator on these Formula 2000 vehicles. So if it is that low, you gotta wonder, is this the lap a lot of them would be coming down? And here's the question. Is this a matter of monkey see, monkey do? If you do have the car going in that's in front of you, do you want to go in as well to kind of keep up the pace and make sure you don't make any mistakes? Because if you do stay out for an extended period of time, well, it's not going to be that damaging if you can get the car around into the pits if you're in the final sector, but it's still a risk that I think all of these guys are considering. And the other thing is, yes, the pit window is lap 8 to 10. Does that mean they'll come in at the end of 7 at the start of 8, or at the end of 8 at the start of 9? So a lot of things that I don't think I'm envious of having to make that decision.
Yeah, it's going to be something to really wonder, what these drivers are thinking of, especially with how much fuel they have left sometimes. So It's a challenge, of course. It's going to be really just a wonderment of, well, when do I pit? Do I pit at the end of 7 coming to 8? Is that going to get me to the end? Is it going to be on lap number 8? Or, I mean, it depends. I mean, technically you'd be on lap 8 if you're in your pit stall, but then it just gets all convoluted. So at that point, it's more getting to the territory of just, well, we don't have to be, well, we can be specific, but do we have to be that specific? So we'll find out this time if anyone does decide to come to pit road. In the meantime, so far, Tomas Simon just breaking the toe. Diogo Francisco following suit directly behind him. You can see Martin Cruz and pretty much almost everyone else relatively staying for the most part on the left-hand side of the racetrack. So lap 8 and a great pass on the outside by Diogo Francisco. He'll go side by side out of the corner, wheel to wheel again between Francisco and Simon. Simon's going to actually let him go by. So I think Simon may be looking to come into pit road this time around.
Yeah, so what you're going to see here is that each driver will have finished, what is it? They'll have finished 8 laps. I don't know. It's such a big question mark that we will have answered by the time this lap is over in 30 seconds as they go around turn 7 into Masters Corner, the sharp right-hander. This is such a fun corner to drive. It's such a fun corner to watch cars go through because you've got to have the gas still on, still accelerate, but you're still making a right and you're trail braking into turns 9, and then you've got another big curve in turn 10. So such a technical circuit that I can understand why some Formula 1 drivers might not be the biggest fan of, because it is not terribly wide. But with Skip Barber's, it's just it's wide enough where you can have 3, 4 if you want to try it abreast down the front straight. As you see, look at Francisco just spinning and drifting through Hans Ernst into Kumno. And this is going to be the big question mark that we'll have answered. Is anyone going to dive down into the pits? We'll see as they come around Ari Lewandijk curve, the number 48 Francisco machine. Who dives down? Anyone? And look who's the first one to go in. It's Simon. So fighting for that lead position, it's going to see him come into the pits at the end of lap 8. There's a couple other takers, but the only one from that lead pack, it's Simon. So what does Francisco do, and is he at a disadvantage?
Well, we'll see. He's running out front now at this point, and again, at that front entry to pit road, the cones are pretty much directly after the pit entry barrel. So it's going to be a key thing to get slowed down very quickly and hope that you have no one directly behind you. In case the Croydon effect does happen. Everyone luckily was so spread out to that point, but Francisco at this point is at a disadvantage because he's using all the fuel, and if he wants to stretch it out to lap number 10, well, at this point he'd have to immediately back up and go behind Martin Cruz.
Yes, so Francisco has been the biggest, I don't know if it's waster, but he's used the most fuel through the entirety of this race so far. And if he is able to stretch it into this lap, it looks like he's going to be fine coming into the pits at the end of lap 9. Who's to say he's not going to be able to go another 9 laps and finish this race? I think another big question mark now is if somebody who went into the pits earlier, especially Simon, is going to be okay on fuel for 10 laps because he pitted at the end of lap 8. Well, you got to make 10 more laps after that. I don't know if he's going to have enough, especially if he's fighting at the front. Seeing if Francisco goes down or not might answer our question. If Francisco does not go down at the end of this lap, then I think it's very easy to say that Simon will be fine, but Francisco, he dove down to the pits and cuts right back to the left. So Francisco with a little bit of a trickery, and he's going to stay out for one more lap. Contact, as you said, down near the pit exit. Who is that? It's the number 44 machine of Benny Simonson. Not sure if there's any visible damage on that car. He might be fine as you get the replay here. See all the cars snaking around the front stretch. He is trying to make a pass down the right-hand side and was blocked a bit. I think that was by Perez, but I don't really see any wrongdoing by Perez because these cars, if you make a sharp right, the momentum's going to take it really hard. There was a good amount of space there, so that might just have been an issue on the other end. Francisco in the lead. Kane Halliburton, who's been in fourth since the start of this race, is right behind him coming around Masters. So, I mean, this has to be the lap that Francisco comes in.
If he stays out one more lap, I'm going to be absolutely very surprised and be convinced that he has like a gas can or something, like a secondary gas can in his car that he's consistently refueling somehow or whatever. But we'll see what Francisco does. But if he does, well, we'll see. As well, Francisco and, as you can see directly behind himself, Kane Halliburton. Those two are teammates, if you couldn't tell by the look of their liveries, as well as Edwin Valerino and Christian Perez. Those two are also teammates, so kind of a little bit F1-esque in terms of their paint scheme designs on their liveries as well. So quite interesting to see that teammates have decided to stay out. So I'm wondering if both of them maybe pre-planned this or decide, well, you know what, we're going to try and stay out to lap 10, constant communication. But this time by, it's going to be pretty much the entire top 5. Now coming into pit road, maybe not. No, Kane Halliburton stays out and Christian Perez as well. I don't think they could have made it.
Well, it's Halliburton staying out, like you said, and just one other driver from the entire field. That's Christian Perez that have not yet gone into the pit. So, wow, I'm not really sure what the strategy call is like here. It might be a great call, especially because they, especially Halliburton, are in at the top of the field. Perez starting the race in P6. Is it the right call? I don't know. You're going to be able to push to the maximum without any worry of fuel in the second half of this race. But I also think that what this says is that drivers will be able to go 10 laps, at least 10 laps, especially if you're in the draft, on a single 40% full tank of fuel, because that's what the limits are in the 2K World Cup. It's that single 40% full tank, and that's what constitutes a full tank in this league, as they go around the turn 9 and 10 complex here and down. As you see that map on the right hand side, we've got some action trying to see exactly where the leaders are, and Halliburton is again coming down into the Hans Ernst curve. As you see the machines back down there, I'm not quite sure what number that is. I believe that is the machine of Simon, who is currently in a packed battle. I don't think that worked out at all for him. So Simon is currently, I think, in a potential P4 of sorts. We'll see everything once it gets sorted out, but I think he is a big loser of this all.
Okay, Halliburton and Christian Perez are able to pit this time by. I'm not sure. I'm thinking if they meant to stay out one extra lap, but at that point, well, it's going to be proverbial lead going to Martin Cruz, who you can see now. So at this time, just wait for those dots in the pit road to move, and we'll see where everyone sorts themselves out. They just now, Perez and Halliburton, got to their pit boxes, and at this point, it's just a matter of seeing how long they decide to stay in their pit boxes. Down the straightaway they come, still in pit box is Halliburton. He starts to go. He's out of pit road.
This might work out.
This is good. This is actually probably going to work out. Perez out as well, and it's going to be cycled back into the lead. Kane Halliburton by a huge margin. Perez just up in front in second, in front of these against Cruz and Francisco. So at this point, it's going to be a side-by-side battle. Francisco now to third place, and surprisingly, that worked out.
Wow, it worked to the best extent that it possibly could have worked. And here's the other crazy thing. Halliburton, he's in the best case scenario, as well as Perez. They have the fuel to make it and push. This is crazy. How could they absolutely get there? And oh no, guys. Kane Halliburton has disconnected. Halliburton in the lead is not showing in the race anymore. Wow. Christian Perez is shown in P1. Not sure what happened there, but Halliburton from the lead, and now he's out of the server.
I'm not sure. The only thing I can think of is some type of a hardware issue, at least, or power, but at this point, that's Christian Perez in the lead at this point. So, I mean, I don't know. I've never seen something like that happen, but at this point, we'll now have to focus on Christian Perez, who can at least get into the lead. But I'm pretty sure that Francisco is wondering, wait, what had happened? And he's probably getting relayed that information. We'll maybe see after the race, but I don't know. It's just a huge shock to what exactly happened to Kane Halliburton. But regardless, Christian Perez now going to be cycled into the lead. And, well, luckily with his pit strategy with Halliburton and that little bit of a draft tow that was taken, well, Perez is in the lead for the time being. But he's got Francisco, Cruz, and pretty much the rest of the top five bearing down on his back bumper. Out peaks Francisco to the right-hand side. Here comes directly behind him. Martin Cruz looks in the middle 3 wide at least, but not going to make anything happen immediately around. Francisco and Perez going to be battling wheel to wheel through the first couple corners, and I'm wondering if anyone decides to back out. Francisco getting really close to the tires of Perez, but luckily Perez able to come out in front.
I am still shocked, and it's so unfortunate that Halliburton disconnected. Man, we're not quite sure, if he's gonna what the situation will be with him. Trying to see if he's back in. Obviously, he is not. He is showing as the last R to, I guess, have disconnected here. He's still falling down the order, so he's done. Unfortunate for him, but obviously you've got the situation up front with a hard battle between Perez, Francisco, Cruz, and Thomas Simon has worked his way back up into the battle. 5 cars separated by within 1 second of each other. It's going to be a great battle till the end of this race, Gary.
And running on board with Anthony Cat, he is in the best possible position for this, behind 4 other cars as Cruz peeked out to the left-hand side for a second, falls back in behind, trying to just figure out what lane to go for to get by Francisco. But Anthony Cat in the best possible place now, sitting behind everybody and using the draft, not pushing, not consistently trying to pass. That's the same with Thomas Simon, who's directly in front of him. So right now, it's pretty much your top 3 that is consistently trying to battle and pass each other for now. And I'm wondering how much this can benefit Simon, Cat, and maybe Simon Edwards as well, who's a little bit of a distant place in 6th place. You should see him pop in right there for the quick moment in the background. So we'll see if these drivers do continue to battle it out heavily, as it's going to be side by side for the lead again. Francisco, Cruz, both on the right-hand side. Perez defending on the left-hand side as well. And it's going to be possibly carbon copy of what happened just a couple laps ago, getting almost under the curbing in the grass is Perez, but he just manages to go off the track, actually. Almost slides around in front, but manages to luckily just catch the car and hold on to it. Still defending, at least now, for 2nd place.
But he's not going to stay in 2nd for long. Martin Cruz takes over 2nd, and he's got a whole whirl of momentum behind him. Right on the gearbox of Francisco. Is he going to make a move? No, but almost a stack up in an accordion effect as Cruz braked early right there, with Perez stacking up behind him, Simon and Cat. And obviously, like you said, Simon Edwards, he right now sits in P6, and he's got a sizable gap behind and in front. He's around 1.5 seconds, both behind Cat and in front of Aaron DeFrida, who was in the battle last race for I don't know how long before he did not come out the victor there, as Perez currently sits in P3. He obviously was one of the 2 drivers, he and Halliburton, who stayed out until lap 11 to go into the pits. There's going to be 4 laps to go coming to the line out of this final 2 curves, the Kumno corner and Ari Lewandijk curve. And I think we're going to know the victor by the time the Ari Lewandijk curve comes out. I'm going to place some money on it right there, Gary. I don't think it's going to be a big enough straight for the guy in 2nd to draft and get in front of the guy in P1 coming down to the end. I will tell you this, we're going to have a photo finish.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see a photo finish, or at least maybe 2 passes in at least 1 lap here down into turn number 1 and throughout this entire first sector, as well as pretty much in the closing portion of the sector. So we shall see how that plays out. Lap times, at least for the time being, just for those who are interested. Well, 2nd place, Martin Cruz, he ran a 1:53.331. So right now for the time being. I believe that's the fastest race lap for now, but not too far behind is still Diego Francisco with a 153.378. So relatively equal lap times for your front two runners. Christian Perez, well, he ran the outer line last time around in the opening sector, so he's at 153.8.
Yeah, so the fastest lap overall is Tymus Simon with a 153.148. And the best last lap, trying to see exactly who it is. And obviously, we've got the 153.3 marks, which is really where everybody who is in this front pack is running, as Simon lets Cat go to the left of him, coming down into the sharp right-hand Hans Ernst corner, and Cat's going to let go. You really can't make a move on the outside there because of that quick right-left combo that hits you pretty hard. You're right on the gearbox there. Cruz looking down the outside of Francisco, but he shuts the door going into Kumno. And Francisco gets his left tires almost into the sand there, as you see the difference. As you see, oh, it looks like we might have a spinner. I'm not sure if he kept that. He did. So you see, once you get those left-hand tires into the gravel, it's such a dangerous place to be as a driver. Cruz down the outside of Francisco, can't make it work. And Francisco, who started the race in P1, could he make it a great day and just finish in first as well? There's under 3 laps to go here. What a great battle this has been all race.
Right now, it's only 3 laps to go, believe it or not. So at some point, it is going to be go time. And of course, well, with these races, that go time is going to be the last lap. But my eyes are going to be on Christian Perez, who stayed out an extra lap. He's able to push incredibly hard. He's been sitting back really ever since Cruz and Francisco passed him, thinking, well, you know what? If these two want to battle so hard, let them use up everything that they have available to them and come and try in the final laps to see if it will be possible to get by at least one of those two, maybe even both of them, depending on whatever can happen. Maybe Tomas Simon has a little bit of a different idea. He looks to the right-hand side of Perez, but nothing doing yet. I think Tomas Simon is getting really antsy. He wants to get back up there very soon.
The top 5 have broken away. Look at that beautiful shot in the beaches of the Netherlands. Going into Hans Ernst. Cruz is going to look down the inside of Francisco, but goes late on the brakes. Look at them just drifting through these corners. It's so exciting to see. Coming into Kumno, 2 laps to go once they hit the stripe. It's Francisco, Cruz, Perez, and Simon and Cat in the top 5 positions. Now Simon, who pitted earlier than anyone really, well, he's been in the draft for this entirety of the stint, so maybe he feels like he can push it. And look at that big run of momentum for Cruz down the left-hand side, and at the line it looked like Francisco got him, as he did, but Cruz comes down the outside into Tarzan, goes really wide, but look, there's gonna be a hit and contact. Cisco is spun, he got loose, and Perez also falls back into P4. Look who's in first now. It's Tymus Simon. Right behind him is Perez. You see the replay with 2 laps to go. Big calamities in front.
And unfortunately, it was just a matter of driving too hard for Diego Francisco. I think maybe suspension issues or something, but he pulled off and immediately took a tow. So not sure what exactly had happened if he couldn't get back going, but regardless, now it is Tomas Simon, Christian Perez, Anthony Cat, and Martin Cruz in your top 4. Cruz a little bit of a ways behind this group in your top 3 for now, but, well, it's only 2 laps to go, coming to 1 lap to go at the line, and already we have something pretty much just a lot of action really going on. But Tomas Simon back in the lead, back in contention for the win at the moment, but Christian Perez is looking to change that as soon as possible.
Christian Perez in P2, Martin Cruz a distant P4. We can't even worry about him. The top 3, that's who it's between right now. Coming down to 1 lap to go after this final sector. You also have to wonder about whether or not that there's a lot of, if there's enough energy, if there's enough fuel energy. We're not in Formula E. If there's enough fuel for Simon to actually last the entire way as he gets his tires into the gravel trap, is still able to move it. He's going to lose a ton of momentum down the front stretch for the second to final time. They're snaking down the inside. They're going to go side by side. Simon still in the lead at the stripe, but Perez is going down the outside. Cat, who started the last lap at Spa in P3, but ended up obviously winning 2 podiums in a row, would be absolutely beautiful. My word, this is absolutely ridiculous right now. Through the first sector, Cat still watching. He's looking to pounce on his prey like Anthony Cat he is. God, I'm so sorry with these puns lately. Anthony Perez, or Christian Perez, is in P1 and Simon in P2. Gary, this is going to be a ridiculous ending.
Yeah, it's going to be Tomas Simon and Anthony Cat both looking for that win, especially Anthony Cat, as you see the battle just behind them for P4. And, well, that group, battling as much as they are, may not have a shot at contention for the win. We'll see how they sort themselves out. It's still single file for the top 3, so at this time, looking to the right-hand side is going to be Anthony Cat on Tomas Simon, looking for second place.
Simon is in P2 with Perez in P1. Perez started the lap in second, but is now in first. We're in the final sector here. I don't know if Simon's just holding up because he really doesn't have that much left in the tank. I don't think anyone is going to be able to beat Perez. But look at Anthony Cat. He's going down the inside of Simon for P2. They're wheel to wheel going to Kumno. I don't think anyone is happier about this than Christian Perez into Kumno curve and then into Ari Lewandijk, who's going to get P2. We know P1 is going to Perez, but they're side by side for P2. Down into the front stretch, Thomas Simon is going to finish in P3, but it's all Christian Perez who wins at Zandvoort in the 2K World Cup. Wow, what an ending.
Someone ran out of fuel at the end, just coming across the start-finish line. Unfortunately, by the looks of it, I think it was Tomas Simon waiting. It was Tomas Simon who had ran out just after the start-finish line, I believe. He immediately slowed down the middle of the track, but regardless, a great battle, and well, pretty much for pretty much fourth on back. And you can see here, everyone just trying to scramble for whatever position possible at the start-finish line. And my goodness, yeah, I think Tomas Simon just had immediately run out of fuel right after that. But regardless, though, luckily it was after the start-finish line. A great job, though. That pit strategy for Christian Perez had finally paid off.
You just got to feel bad, though, for Kane Halliburton, who was in the driver's seat in terms of finishing first, but that disconnect cost him a win and a great haul of points. Everyone has finished in this race. We'll be able to look at that final order between everyone in just a moment as the finishing positions start to line up. As we do wait till we get the race results. Christian Perez will be the winner with Anthony Cat following in P2. Not as close as I thought we would get at the finish because of that incident. Thomas Simon, Martin Cruz, Simon Edwards, Philip Lebert, Aaron DeFrida, Manuel Lucetta, Bora Zazo, and Tom Ward are your top 10.
Your top 20 is going to be George Matsuchinski in 11th. 12th place is going to be Gustavo Condi. Jonathan Dance finishes P13. Steven Stoyles finishes in 14th. Alejandro Lyro finishing in the top 15. 16th through 20th, as you can see, is going to be Victor Gougenot. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Anthony Witt is 17th. Colin Van Ram finishing in 18th. And Danielle for goodness gracious. Well, Danielle, unfortunately, in 235, whose last name I cannot pronounce at this time, finishing in P19, and Hans Hewer finishing in P20.
So we'll let the rest of the results go down your screen as you see them all there. 43 drivers did participate. Another big loser from this one is Diego Francisco, who finishes in P38, one lap down after being right there in the lead at the very end of the race. So unfortunate for him, but I'll tell you what, the big winners from this one, it's Cruz and Cat. Cat won the race last time, finishes P2 today, and Martin Cruz, who finished P4 the last race, is going to be finishing, obviously, in P4 today. So some good results for those two. We'll talk more about the race and interview some of the front runners right after these messages. What a great race from Zandvoort.
Coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson.
Unbelievable finish.
It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side by side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead.
Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Loma is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett low. 4 wide at the stripe. For all he's with here on this outside line, neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron, drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
Well, what a interesting race that was at Circuit Park Zandvoort. Christian Perez comes out the victor with Kat and Simon in the second and third place spots, all three of them with some great podium positions. You know, we were talking a bit about how Anthony Cat and Martin Cruz came out of the race in great shape because in truth they really did. But who else came out of the race in a great way? Well, it's none other than the race organizer, Philippe Lebert, because Lebert finished 6th at Spa after qualifying in 10th. But here he qualifies 18th and also finishes in 6th, and we're joined alongside him right now. Philippe, how was the entire race from your view?
The first half was patience, and the second half was mayhem. So I was kind of hoping that there would be some fighting going on at the front, and I think that actually happened because they were dropping like flies at the front. And yeah, of course my bad qualifying didn't really help. P18, I don't think I've ever qualified that low. My lap felt good, but it was slow. So I don't know. But in the end, yeah, the last lap was, well, I think we came close to disaster 3 or 4 times, and everyone survived, and I'm very happy with P6.
Now, you might come out of here third in the standings if everything works out your way. Does it feel almost too good to be true? Because, yes, you had some great finishes the last 2 rounds, but you haven't been fighting for the lead, but all of a sudden, you're right there in the championship.
Yeah, that's true. But this season I don't have the pace. I didn't drive in 6 months, and I have very little time to practice. So I don't have the pace. I have to fight my way to the front with racecraft and trying to be intelligent. But I don't think I have the. I will be able to fight for the championship. Of course, P3, that's nice, but I won't be able to hold that position.
Well, you say that now, but you never know what could happen, especially on an oval like we're going to in 2 weeks' time. What's your experience like on ovals and turning left?
Well, I've done quite a few ovals and many in the Skippy, and it's a lot of fun. I've actually never won a race in an oval race in the Skippy. I finished in P2 3 times, I think. So a victory is long overdue, but it's a little bit of a lottery. So I'm just hoping to survive it until the end, and if I can do that, I should be in a good position.
Well, to finish first you must finish, and survival is really the name of the game when we're talking about ovals. Congratulations, Philippe, and thank you for joining us here. All right, so Circuit Park Zandvoort it held host to a fantastic race here. I don't think any of us really could have hoped for anything less because Zandvoort, known for not being able to be passed that well, well, you know what? How about passing here? It's really a really great scene for these skippies. I feel like almost any track can be great for these skippies. But do you have any closing thoughts here, Gary?
Well, with Phoenix as the next race in a couple weeks, I'm really looking forward to that. You can see that in the graphic there. May 24th, same time as per usual. And, well, I'm only very slightly biased towards that racetrack because I have been there consistently as well. So it's going to be, or consecutively, I should say, and it is absolutely exciting. The 2008 version of Phoenix as well, specifically. So, no dogleg for these drivers. It's going to be all avoiding the grass and staying on the racing surface. And again, something really just to look out for is going to be that last corner where you're more than likely going to be sideways in turns 3 and 4. But after this race today, it was absolutely incredible. I feel really bad for Kane Halliburton, to be honest. He almost had that to think he would have had that maybe if he didn't disconnect all of a sudden. So unfortunately for him, but at least we know for the next race that, well, if fuel strategy does play into effect, maybe, just maybe, he can get that strategy down once again.
It always seems like a couple drivers always have issues, whether it's with their internet or with another client or in front of them as the race winds down. Well, this has been another presentation of Race Spot TV on the iRacing Esports Network. The Skip Barber 2K World Cup. What a great league. We're getting into the thick of it here in 2 weeks' time. People behind it all, my name is Dylan Coyle alongside Gary Weaver and Arjuna Kankipati. He is the man behind the scenes, behind the cameras. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And for this time, good night, good racing, and happy Mother's Day. Take care, everyone.